Shiva Mahboubie is the co-founder and spokesperson of the campaign to free political prisoners in Iran, and she joins me now from London. Shiva, thank you so much for taking the time. We appreciate you joining the show. In terms of the structural damage to Evin Prison, how much do you know about how much damage was done in these strikes to the prison itself? Was it just the gates to the prison, or was there more structural damage to the building itself?
No, it wasn't just the gate. Actually, the main kitchen, the clinic, the small clinic that the prison had was destroyed. Lots of glasses were broken. Some of the male prisoners were injured. So it wasn't just the entrance. And I have to say that when you say, was it just the entrance? Imagine you're in prison and all of a sudden the door of the prison gets attacked. Prisoners, they don't know what's happening. And it's horrifying for the prisoners inside prison and being attacked.
What have you heard about the reaction to these strikes, to the prison itself? And what do you know about any specifics regarding casualties? You just gave a brief example, but can you go into more detail, please?
Well, the thing is, like, we don't know. As you know, the regime does not release any sort of real number of how many people were killed or injured. We know this information through ex-political prisoners or families that been told by their children or other prison that how many people were injured. That's all we know about it. But what we know that they were quite distressed. I'm saying they were because right now the female political prisoners were taken to Karchak prison, which is the biggest women prison in the Middle East, very well known, infamous for their situation. And the men are taken forcibly to Fashafoye prison, which is again, these two prisons been sanctioned by the United States government, and they're known for their horrifying situation. So they are actually very stressed on one hand. They don't know what's going on. And the regime using this opportunity since last night, in the middle of the night, the regime took lots of buses in front of Evin Prison and forcibly handcuffed took them to this prison without informing them, which is kind of like forced disappearance, and also without telling their family. The families on the other side, they're really worried because there is no telephone contact. From what we know, the women's ward of prison in Evin, the women there, they've been sent to Karchak and they've been told they're not allowed to have a phone call. And currently they all there. So the problem is that, as you know, the internet in Iran is majorly cut off. So therefore, we do not have these reports unless some of them contact us and let us know. So we don't know what's happening. But I just want to say, when we say casualty, it's not about just the physical damage and injury. It's the horrifying kind of psychological torture on these prisoners. I know that because in the 80s, I was in the prison when I was a teenager in the time of war between Iran and Iraq, and I was injured. So it's horrifying to be in prison and be targeted. So this is not acceptable at all. One more thing, the regime uses this opportunity to exile prisoners to those prisons that are holding non-political prisoners who were arrested for murder, drug, etc. So it's quite dangerous. It's not just the attack, it's what it follows as well. So therefore, it's hard to know what's going to happen to these prisoners. We're very sort of worried about, are they going to be executed or anything like that? So therefore, it's quite different layer of basically damaged psychologically, physically, and what's going to happen to them later. We know that right after Trump announced the ceasefire, a few hours after that, the judiciary announced that they're going to basically have a different, much faster process to put people on trial and follow and execute them for spying for the Israeli government, a bogus charge that no one have any proof. But this is the way they want to get rid of the political prisoners.
Yeah, and
so I guess what I'm trying to say, yeah, Bianna, this is beyond the scope of what we're thinking.
And as somebody who has been and spent time at this prison, when you first heard about these strikes, what was your immediate reaction?
It's too close to my heart. I lost my best friend in the same attack. So I can't even look at that image as you have seen, that the explosion at the entrance of the Evin Prison, because you have to imagine this is nothing symbolic about it, as the Donald Trump saying, or Israeli government is saying, nothing symbolic about it. So it's heartbreaking. I've been trying to basically publicize the situation, to put pressure on the regime to release political prisoners, even based on basically their own law. They're supposed to release all political prisoners, but that's not going to happen. So for someone who been in prison at the time of the war, I know what they are going through. The problem is that right now, the regime, from the very first day, 13th of June, when the attack started, they brought lots of security forces on the street. We have to remember people in Iran are in two wars, the attack by Israel and also the attack by the security forces of the regime.
A regime that's in turmoil, a regime that's facing paranoia and concern about their own survival. What does that mean for political prisoners at Evin and those activists in the country that remain?
The news that we get is all about being threatened by the regime, their telephone being checked constantly, their car being checked constantly inside the prison. In some of the prison, actually, they don't even give them food. In two other cities, even in Islamabad prison, another one, that when the prisoners ask for shelter, they basically shoot them, and at least 15 prisoners were killed. And these are what you don't see on the news, unfortunately. When I was in prison, I was not given shelter. The door of the solitary confinement was shut when the war was going on, and I got injured. So at the moment, the reason regime threaten people, the reason regime that bring all the security forces on the street is not because they are powerful, because they are petrified of people overthrowing them. 3 years ago, in Women Life Freedom, we have seen the power of people. And one more thing I wanted to say, people in Iran are against war. This is not our war. This is the war between two warmongers. And at the same time, we don't want anyone to rescue us. I think 3 years ago, people in Iran proved that they are capable of overthrowing the Islamic regime. But the problem is all the government around the world, including US and Israeli government, they are actually not doing what they're supposed to do, meaning basically kicking out all their diplomats, putting IRGC, Islamic Revolutionary Guard, on the list of terrorist organizations. It's not just about nuclear program. People never wanted a nuclear bomb. But the problem is right now, people are stuck in a situation that they get attacked, but at the same time, they get attacked in prison, and execution is gonna come very soon. I want to say that I'm saying that because in the time of the war between Iran and Iraq, when it's finished, the Islamic regime created a massacre, killed thousands of political prisoners in the summer of 1988. We are very fearful that similar thing might happen when all the media is concentrating only on the attack and the voice of political prisoners and their family are not heard. The activists inside Iran are constantly being threatened.
What are your biggest concerns going forward now, given the fragility of the ceasefire, given the humiliation that the Iranian regime has just endured, and given the fact that there are these vulnerable, very brave, but suppressed voices, both at the prison and still within the country itself at large?
Well, my biggest fear is that the regime stays in power and then start actually massacring not just political prisoners, arresting more people as they have done in the last 10 days. So the problem is right now, I think we have to understand people, Israeli government saying, why people not coming on the street and overthrow the regime? It doesn't work like that. And also They say that we attack the prison walls so people can run away. This is not a Hollywood movie. This is reality. And right now, if people come on the street, they're going to be shot by the IRGC. My biggest fear is not basically only the war. Of course, the war is always bring misery. Is the Islamic regime being emboldened and start attacking people further and further? I mean, listen to what they say, because they're so petrified. They say that we're gonna put lots of people on trial and execute them because they collaborated with the Israeli regime. So this is my biggest fear. It's not the atomic bomb.
Yeah, which is why so many people are warning that outsiders, especially talking about regime change right now, is something that is not only quite alarming, but dangerous for those inside the country right now.
Regime, people want to overthrow the Islamic regime, but we've been massacred in the last 46 years. I was in prison when I was 12 years old. Then I was in prison when I was 16 years old. Many people like myself, it's not about that. My question is, if the international body, if the government wants to help Iran, wants to get rid of the regime, the only way is to support people in Iran, meaning cut all your political ties with the regime, expel all the diplomats, shut down the embassies, freeze their assets. We have been telling them for years and years. Regime change doesn't come from the Israeli government and the US, it comes from people.
Such important points. It always comes from the people. Thank you, Shiva Mahbobi, for speaking to us. Really appreciate it.